A tiny drop of land in the Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka. These palm-fringed shores have seduced travelers from around the globe for centuries. Drawn to its mountainous heart, where creatures found nowhere else on Earth hide amongst cloud-cloaked trees. Adventurers were enticed by tales of spices and the promise of green gold. But long before tea carpeted these hills, ancient civilizations ruled. The early Sinhalese harnessed the power of nature, transforming a wilderness into a landscape of temples and lakes, creating huge reservoirs of water to sustain life through the dry months. Today, their kingdoms are crumbled. But in these waters, their legacy lives on. An ancient man-made land of lakes, now home to the greatest gathering of elephants anywhere in Asia. A place where a new king rules. The sun rises over the southern coast of Sri Lanka. A land stalked by one of nature's most feared predators. The king of the jealously guarding a scavenged boar against other hungry mouths. He drags the carcass into the trees. But this jackal can smell food. If he finds it, his pack could strip it to the bone in hours. His meal defended, he returns to scavenge on what remains. Using his rough tongue to peel skin from the bone. But keeping the carcass safe is a full-time job. especially when other predators are on the prowl. This crocodile has taken his search for food onto the land. Its home is the man-made lakes of the ancient kings. But during the dry season, it roams further afield for food. Sri Lanka's forests keep their secrets well. But this living labyrinth hides a great struggle for life. Bejeweled predators hunt on the forest floor, while new generations are forged among its branches. Each level of the trees is a separate kingdom with its own unique species. In these jungles, man too has his place among the trees. For centuries, Sri Lanka and its hidden treasures have seduced travelers from around the globe. What they found was a land where great civilization flourished. And a diversity of wildlife to rival an entire continent. Encircled by a great wilderness of ocean. The furious struggle for life is crammed onto an island only 380 kilometers long. Yet within these shores, there is a place where that competition is at its most intense. The cloud-cloaked forests. The forests of Sri Lanka rise above the rest of the country like islands out of the sea. Here, species found nowhere else in the world have been marooned on high forest plateaus. A purple-faced leaf monkey, found nowhere else except Sri Lanka. And this variety lives only in the country's lush. Some scientists worry that many of Sri Lanka's primates may not survive far beyond the next 20 years. Their loss would be the sad conclusion to a story that began 300 years ago. In the 1700s, the British arrived in these forests. For almost 200 years, they ruled this island, razing trees to the ground to make space for plantations of a new and imported crop: coffee. But that's not what's being plucked from these hillsides today. A disastrous blight wiped out the embryonic highland coffee industry, and the British turned instead to another imported plant: tea. Within a decade, Ceylon's tea was world famous. But its growth meant that forests were reduced to more and more isolated fragments, islands within an island. Species found nowhere else on Earth became isolated from the rest of Sri Lanka. As night falls across Sri Lanka's remaining forests, a net of stars is cast across the trees. Caught in the glow of their soft light, spiders, porcupines, and bats emerge from the gloom. A new set of creatures competing for the same resources as their daytime neighbors. A ghostly apparition. Once Sri Lanka would have been filled with these strange creatures. One of the most ancient primates in the world. The slender loris. As his a weary ocean traveler returns to the shores of an island paradise. For millennia, great oceanic currents have brought visiting giants to these magical shores. An island where deep-sea leviathans roam close to land. One of the greatest oceanic shows on Earth. But why are so many of these great sea creatures drawn to this island? For centuries, Sri Lanka and its hidden treasures have seduced travelers from around the globe. Enticed by tales of rare spices and ancient civilizations, Indian, Arab and European adventurers were drawn to this irresistible island. What they found was a land of extraordinary riches, of foreign gods and faith in nature. With herds of Asian giants, and creatures found nowhere else on Earth. But what they didn't know was that the real treasures of Sri Lanka can be found even before you step foot on its shore. In the Indian Ocean, the island of Sri Lanka stands as a crossroads for all kinds of migrating marine life. Just off the coast is one of the world's biggest gatherings of the largest predator alive. The sperm whale. Nomads of the sea, they're almost continuously on the move. Only this isn't a reef at all. Unnatural angles and perfect circles hint at past lives. Cargo ships, trawlers and World War ships litter the bottom of Sri Lanka's coast. The largest port in Sri Lanka is exposed. Strong seas and monsoon winds make these treacherous waters. But that keeps the currents circulating, and before long, shipwrecks are seized by colonists. All manner of creatures take up residence. The wrecks provide food as well as shelter. Fish feed on algae and weeds growing on the hull. gets crowded down here. A damselfish guards her patch and crop of algae. The wreck's very own gardener, she weeds her crop. Removing unwanted algae and seaweed from her patch helps the algae she likes to grow. The faint red circle on this mast is a patch of red algae, which she can digest far more easily than other types. But it's popular with trespassers too. Living in such close proximity to other fish means some unusual ways of getting a meal and strange relationships have evolved. It's not just gardeners, there are cleaners here too. This somewhat frantic, blue-streaked wrasse is advertising for business. By swimming strangely, moving up and down and waggling his tail, he's letting passers-by know that he and his team of females are accepting clients. Yellow-striped fusiliers notice his dance. Small groups break away from the school and stop at the wrasse's cleaning station. Soon, there is a rush on.